the impeachment of Donald Trump has dominated discussion in today's Democratic Party debate. 7 presidential hopefuls have just taken to the stage in Los Angeles earlier today. That's just a day out, of course, after Trump became just the 3rd US president to be impeached. Joining me now is CNN reporter Whitney Wild for more on this. Whitney, thanks very much for your time. Well, talk us through what they had to say about impeachment. We all assume that they supported it, of course. What was the most interesting line we heard today?
Well, what most of these candidates did on stage, especially the ones who were going to have to sit in on that Senate trial, was to reiterate why House Democrats felt like they really had no choice but to impeach the president. So that was very much a reiteration of what we've heard in the past. Andrew Yang offered an interesting and different explanation. He has said, and he said at the debate, and he has said in the past that he doesn't think that impeachment is necessarily going to help Democrats win in 2020. What he said on stage was that he thinks that the most effective strategy for Democrats is not to focus on impeachment, to stop talking about Donald Trump, stop talking about impeachment altogether, and instead focus on the reasons that the president got elected, focus on the issues facing voters in places like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, places that had gone blue in several other presidential elections prior.
So we're talking about not quite forgetting about the impeachment, I guess, Whitney, but looking to the fact that the Senate is never going to vote in favour of this. And, you know, what are you going to fight election 2020 on? And maybe Donald Trump would love to fight it on this because it goes to his whole mandate of I'm persecuted, I didn't do anything wrong, this is what they're obsessed with.
Right, exactly. And so it is a delicate dance for Democrats, especially because the data shows that Americans are still split. They don't want to hear about this anymore. So the question for several candidates on stage was, how would you convince voters who do not agree with the impeachment to move to the other side of that conversation? And Democrats continue to push forward on this narrative that they think that the president's actions were so outrageous that they had no choice but to impeach him. So if that continues through 2020, he thinks that he may be able to use that as leverage. And the campaign has said over and over that, in fact, impeachment has helped them fundraise even faster than they thought they would.
Now, amidst this debate, there's always debate within the candidates, but a spat's broken out between Joe Biden and Sarah Huckabee Sanders over stuttering, of all things.
I'm sorry, you cut out for a second. Between Joe Biden?
Sorry. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
And Sarah
I'm
Huckabee
so sorry.
Sanders.
You cut out for a second.
Sorry, Whitney. That's okay. Over stuttering, of all things. They were having a debate outside of the debate almost.
What is so interesting about the way that these debates have unfolded is they've exposed different parts of candidates' personalities. Joe Biden has had this problem throughout these debates where he's had a little bit of a difficult time always speaking in a smooth fashion. Tonight was very different, though, because what he did was he commanded the stage in totality when he had the spotlight. And the question now is whether or not it was because there were just simply fewer candidates, so he felt more comfortable with the airtime, or if he's riding this wave of front-runner status. So this criticism about his stuttering and inability perhaps to speak coherently were diminished tonight because he proved to the American people over and over again that he's able to carry these attack lines and these ideas all the way through rather than tripping up over some of his language that we have seen several times in past debates.
So perhaps he emerged looking a little bit better. Pete Buttigieg, he was copping it a bit tonight as well, Whitney, people going after his inexperience in particular.
Absolutely. So Pete Buttigieg suffered really the most criticism on stage. We actually thought perhaps Joe Biden would be the one who was getting the most criticism, but it wasn't. It was Pete Buttigieg. Over and over, candidates attacked him. Elizabeth Warren attacking him for this fundraiser he threw in a wine cave. Amy Klobuchar attacking him on his lack of experience. Tom Steyer attacking him for not putting climate change farther forward in his campaign. And so that is a double-edged sword because on the one hand, it proves that these candidates think that he's a threat. So that's very much a compliment. On the other hand, the question is, how does he fare through these criticisms? And how does he react when he's under attack? And the only people who can really answer that for certain are the voters. So as this debate closes, we will look forward to the polling following to see what voters really thought of his reactions to some of these criticisms.
I noticed your colleague Will Ripley was watching or trying to watch from Beijing, and once debate went on to China's human rights, they cut the feed. So China's always watching, even though they're not letting other people. Whitney, just finally on that polling you mentioned, so any bold predictions on big moves up or down in the wake of this debate?
You know, we were just talking about that coming out of the debate. I do think that you'll see some movement. Amy Klobuchar had a really good night, and she's one of these candidates that's done really well enough to keep making the stage. Tonight, she really benefited from a smaller stage, so she had a lot more airtime. And what she's done in the past debates, and it really seems like it's all led up to this moment. She's bided her time, bided her time, bided her time. And then when her moment came, really struck hard. And you saw that with that Pete Buttigieg exchange. She commanded the stage over and over at this debate. So I would expect that you would see her move up in the polls. Whether people drop, you know, that remains to be seen. The polling following the debate is so interesting because you get a sense of what voters' reactions are as quickly as you can to debate performances, and sometimes that helps shape the next the performances in subsequent debates.
Yeah, and possibly a little bit different to previous ones. You want someone that can, you know, not be afraid to get in and throw some of those tough verbal volleys. Whitney Wild, really appreciate your time after the debate this evening. Thank you.